Hello, and welcome to Legends of War. Today, we journey into the final hours of an empire and the last breath of the fiercest bodyguards the medieval world had ever known. Settle in, and if you love ancient warfare and forgotten legends, feel free to leave a like so more people can discover stories like this. For over 700 years, the Byzantine Empire stood as the gleaming bridge between East and West. Its emperors walked marble halls lit by golden mosaics, and its armies carried relics said to protect them from entire kingdoms. But behind every emperor, there stood a wall of steel. Warriors who would rather die than retreat. They were not Greek. They were not Roman. They were Vikings, the Varangian Guard. These were men who had carved their names into Europe with axe, fire, and storm. Yet in Constantinople, they found something rare, a home worth defending. They swore an oath not to the empire, but to the emperor himself, to fight as his living shield until the last drop of their blood. Their loyalty became legend, their wrath fearsome, their end unforgettable. And when Constantinople faced its darkest hour in 1453, the Varangians upheld their oath with a ferocity that shocked even the conquerors. Long before they were imperial guardsmen, they were wanderers from the far north, from the fjords of Norway, the forests of Sweden, the icy rivers of Rus. The road to Constantinople was long and brutal. Vikings traveled the Varangian route, steering narrow longships down the Dnieper, hauling vessels over land, fighting Slavic tribes, evading Pecheneg ambushes, and praying their ships would survive the deadly rapids known as the Gates of the Rus. Those who made it to Constantinople entered a world unlike anything they had ever seen. A city of silk, gold, domes, and chanting priests. And the emperor? The emperor paid in gold. More gold than any Viking chieftain could dream of. In exchange, they had to swear one sacred oath, absolute, unquestioning loyalty. Even death could not break it. To enemies of Byzantium, the Varangian Guard were monsters of the battlefield. Towering northern warriors wielding axes so massive, the Byzantines called them the Emperor's Thunderbolts. When palace coups erupted, and they happened often, the Varangians decided who lived and who died. They installed emperors. They toppled them. And when a ruler betrayed his people, the Varangians were the ones who carried out his sentence. Their reputation grew so famous across Europe that poets wrote, "The emperor sleeps soundly, for his guards are from the land of ice." They were loyal because they chose to be, not because they were born Byzantine, but because they valued honor over conquest, gold over plunder, oath over blood. And they kept that oath longer than any mercenary unit in world history. But no empire lasts forever. By the 1400s, Byzantium was a shadow of its past. Once commanding the Mediterranean, it now clung only to Constantinople and a few scattered lands. Its armies were depleted, its treasury strained, its allies unreliable at best. Yet even as the empire withered, the Varangian Guard remained. They were not as numerous as they had once been. No more thousands of men from Scandinavia or Rus. But the spirit remained. Anglo-Saxons who fled Norman rule, Norse descendants scattered across medieval Europe, and Greeks raised within the Varangian tradition formed the final generation of this mighty brotherhood. And then came the storm. Sultan Mehmed II, at the head of over 80,000 men, determined to make Constantinople the jewel of the Ottoman Empire. On May 29, 1453, the final siege reached its climax. On the final night of the empire, the last Varangians gathered. Imagine the scene: a flickering torchlit hall within the Blackernay Palace, a circle of warriors, some old, some scarred, all armed with the heavy axes that had defined their order. They knew the walls would fall. They knew no reinforcements were coming. They knew this was the battle their oath had destined them for. Some prayed, some sharpened blades, some whispered old Norse sagas none had spoken aloud for centuries. They were no longer fighting for gold, not for empire, not even for victory. They fought to keep their oath. Warriors of the North, dying in the South, with the same honor that brought them here generations before. At dawn, the Ottomans launched their final assault. Tens of thousands surged toward the walls. Cannons thundered. Ladders slammed against stone. The defenders were overwhelmed. Inside the gate of St. Romanus, the Varangians stood ready, a cordon of giants among desperate soldiers. When the outer walls finally cracked, Ottoman troops poured through. Chaos erupted, screams, steel, smoke, and then the Varangians charged. Eyewitnesses described them as a living avalanche, swinging axes in great deadly arcs, cutting through armored janissaries as if they were wheat. Their discipline, even in hopelessness, shocked the attackers. They formed a wedge, broke the first line, held the second. For a moment, a brief, desperate moment, the advance stopped. But there were too many enemies, and too few of them. The Varangians were pushed back toward the palace gates. At the final gate of the palace, a small cluster of Varangians formed an unbreakable ring around the last Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI Palaiologos. It was there, in the dust, the screams, the flashing blades, that emperor and guards fought side by side. When Constantine was cut down, the Varangians did not flee. They did not surrender. They attacked with the rage of men who had already accepted death. Machaira blades slashed their shields. Arrows struck between armor plates. But still they fought. One Ottoman chronicler wrote, "They died like lions." Another recorded, "These northern giants fell only when hacked to pieces." And witnesses claimed that even after the palace was taken, Ottoman soldiers refused to approach the final bodies of the Varangians because their hands still gripped their axes as if ready to strike again. When the dust settled, Constantinople was lost. The Byzantine Empire, the last survivor of ancient Rome, was no more. But the Varangian Guard had fulfilled their oath exactly as they swore it. Never retreat, never surrender, die before dishonor. Their chapter ended where it began, in loyalty. Though the empire fell, their legend rose. In Icelandic sagas, in Byzantine histories, in Ottoman chronicles, their last stand became a story of unmatched devotion and warriors who died not for homeland or gold, but for their word. And in a way, that made them more immortal than any empire. If stories of forgotten warriors resonate with you, if you enjoy exploring the battles and oaths that shaped our world, consider subscribing to Legends of War. It helps us bring more of these lost chapters back to life. And tell me in the comments, which warrior group should we cover next? Samurai, Immortals, Mongol heavy cavalry. Your ideas become our next stories. In Istanbul today, under the floors of old churches and palaces, archaeologists have found axe heads and carvings etched in runic script, silent proofs that the men of the North fought here. Tour guides still point to a tunnel beneath Topkapi Palace and whisper, "These were the halls of the Varangians." And somewhere in the earth beneath that ancient city lie the final warriors of a brotherhood like no other. Men who traveled thousands of miles from frozen fjords to defend an emperor they swore to protect until death. Their empire died, but their honor did not. This has been Legends of War, and I hope you enjoyed this journey into the last stand of the Varangian Guard. If you did, feel free to like the video. It helps more history lovers find us, and as always, stay curious, stay brave, and stay loyal to the legends.